They're having sex right now.
She was not.
All right. So my first question of the evening here. So we're speaking of final girls. We're just going to transition into it. Is the final girl played out at this point in time? What are your guys' thoughts?
Oof, this is a good question too. I was kind of like thinking about this.
Oof.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's a yes and no for me. It's a yes because I think, the 80s, that's all it was Final Girl. And, once you got out of the 80s, they tried doing like some different things. And I think a lot of that stuff started to work. They started doing more with like everyone dying or everyone winning, whatever the case. And I'll say no also because I think you could still, with a lot of the remakes that they're doing, with a lot of the movies that they're trying to do a reimagining for and things like that, the Final Girl trope is still powerful. I just think it has lost a lot of finesse over the many of years.
So when I hear the word trope, my mind goes to 80s. Like outside of the 80s, I don't know if tropes really exist. So two things on this one. First, I don't know if you're allowed to make a very female tropey movie nowadays. Like it's just not considered okay. And the second thing, it feels like a lot of these, even if they're final girls, because there are still a lot of final girls that are the victory, that they're pushing back against a lot of the other tropes too. Like they'll have sex in the movie and still be the final girl, or listen to rock and roll music, or all those things that were happening in the 80s. They're like showing those girls do that stuff now, but still like, hey, it's okay. Like the Puritan lifestyle is not what we're pushing through here. So I just don't see it happening anymore until, things kind of swing back in a different direction, right? So we're allowed to make different type of characters, and we'll get a different time where there'll be final men or final boys or little girl. It all comes and goes. So I know you're kind of laughing at me, Mike. That was a ramble, but Mike, I would like to hear what you have to say.
Well, I'm hoping we don't get a final boys thing.
Final boy.
Here's the thing, like the final girl thing. Jason said it. Like it's been going on since the 70s. Well, he said the 80s, but it's really been the 70s. When you go like Last House on the Left and things like that. But like
Halloween,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
But those feel like 80s movies for some reason.
Well, they were the beginning of the 80s movement. Much. That's why. Yeah. But I think we've never left the final girl trope. I think it's played out. I think it's extremely played out, and I would love to see.
But it's not the same.
Well, yeah, but
was my point.
I understand what you're saying, but we're in a women's empowerment time where I agree with you. You can't just kill off all the women, because then it almost says something negative about women versus saying no. It's
like killing the black guy first. You just can't do it anymore.
I want there to be no rules. You know what I mean? Like right now, like I don't care about the sex. I obviously I want to see like a boobie or two on screen, right? But like I don't care if they have sex or don't have sex. I don't care if it's female, male, color, whatever. I want there to be no rules. So you go into a movie and you're like, I have no clue.
No expectations.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I want that to be. If we're not going to make that the norm, let's just make the bad guy winning the norm, and I'll be happy on either one of those. But.
Yeah, and to kind of like piggyback off that, I absolutely agree with that. Like, and I think that's what's made so many of these horror movies like today successful. Like, and the ones that have become successful is because there are no rules. They're completely going outside of the.
But it makes a lot of them cliche as well too, because they. All right, so.